Hello and welcome to the Hockey Hub Podcast. Glad you could join us. I'm Adam Pellerin. Happy to be joined by Judd Sirott. It is episode number 27 of the Hockey Hub Podcast. A Hampus Lindholm, 27, who was skating before the Bruins' formal morning skate the other day as he works his way back from injury. The Bruins could certainly use him as they continue to struggle after the holiday break. We'll get to all that. Plus, Laura Stickells is back with a women's Beanpot preview. It kicks off on January 14th at Matthews Arena. We will hear from Harvard and BC representatives coming up. Judd, how are you?
I'm great, Adam. It's great to see you again.
It's good to see you too. Of course, the Bruins are kicking off a 2-game trip in Florida. It's the mom's trip, so the moms are traveling with the team. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk about that. But Judd, you know, our travels sometimes can be a little interesting, right? And so we each traveled down to Florida on the same flight, but we're staying in different hotels. So while we're recording this podcast on the Wednesday before the Bruins take on the Tampa Bay Lightning, we are not with each other. We are separate in separate hotels.
Yes. So I'm actually staying at a hotel that's not far from the Tampa Convention Center. And when I was walking and checking into my hotel room, there were some people that looked like they were coming from a convention. So I asked, what sort of convention are you coming from? And they said, it's a music educators convention. So as I was getting set up for the Hockey Hub podcast, in the room next door, it sounded like there was a guy with a tuba that was doing the soundtrack from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
That's awesome.
It was fantastic. You know, so at any point, Larry David is going to come wandering into this room and interrupting the podcast, and he'll have something to say, I'm sure. You had a chance to meet him when we were in Washington last year.
I was just going to say that when we were in Washington last year, Larry David had a sort of a Q&A type of show in DC, and he was staying in our hotel, and I got to meet Larry David. So I get to meet Larry David. You get the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme. So there you go. That's the trade-off.
It's either that or basically, I think I just lost the Showcase Showdown on The Price is Right. So that's what you're going to hear at some point after one of my answers.
And I hate to segue this in this manner, but that's kind of how the Bruins have been performing out of the gate, right? That you've kind of heard that sad tuba after the majority of games after the holiday break, with the latest coming at the hands of the Edmonton Oilers. You knew that was going to be a tough test, and the Bruins hung in there. And again, there was a moment in that game, and you could say that for a number of games this year where the pendulum swung, right? And it was when the Oilers were on the power play. The Bruins were up, were down 1-0. Pavel Zacha with a breakaway opportunity. He can't convert. And then Connor McDavid going the other way, 2-0, 3-0. They end up winning 4-0. And, you know, Judd, I guess we'll just start this way. What was your overall takeaway from the loss to the Oilers?
Well, I think, you know, as I took down my notes, you know, that only I can read, you know, and it's something that even before Brick had a chance to do his interview with Joe Sacco, and I think we're going to get an opportunity to hear that from last night's postgame show, that I think about the Bruins, and when they started to turn their game around here this season, it was because they were playing that stingy, hard-to-play against game. They were a tough out. And after the Christmas break, if you look at the games, and the Bruins have gone winless in all 5 of those games since the Christmas break, they haven't played the same way that they did leading into the Christmas break, and playing in the same way that started to turn their season around once the coaching change was made. They have to play a certain way in order to be successful. And that's being dialed in defensively and all the things that it takes in order for the team to be a good defensive team. And that, I think, is underscored when you're playing a team like the Edmonton Oilers that have 2 of the most dangerous guys on the planet playing on the same roster. You know, and they have a variety of different other weapons, you know, and the Bruins certainly got an idea of how much offensive depth that they have, that whether it's puck management, coverage, how they checking with their feet, structure, breaking out, getting through the neutral zone. We can talk about a variety of different things, but I think in the big picture for me, they just have not played the same way and played with that type of defensive-oriented detail since the Christmas break, and the record reflects it.
And you mentioned the post-game interview with interim head coach Joe Sacco. Let's hear that now and react on the back end.
Joe, just two questions tonight. One about tonight's game and the other big picture, I guess. As far as this game against Edmonton, the game plan, executing the game plan, didn't go as designed. What were the biggest issues?
Just to start the game, puck management, and then losing one-on-one battles. They were quicker to pucks than we were. They won more of them, and they executed at a high level. We did not. We gave the puck to them, and that's an elite offensive team. And if you're just going to give them the puck, that's what's going to happen.
Things are getting really tight, not only in the division, but in the conference as well. Points are at a premium, 5 without a win now. How do you get this thing turned around and go in the other direction?
Yeah, it's frustrating, right? We have to find some solutions here moving forward. And again, I just go back to when we have success, we have a certain identity. There's a certain way that we play, and right now we're not doing that. So we have to find some solutions and get back to that game that we know we can play, which will hopefully lead us to some success, because it's frustrating right now.
Well, hopefully the mother's trip will help your team find that. Good luck in Tampa. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Brick.
All right, so the Bruins won 5-1 after the holiday break. They've allowed 15 goals in the last 3 games. 3 of those were empty net goals. But, Joe Sacco talking about needing to play a certain way, and the Bruins haven't been able to do that, Judd.
And the other thing, Adam, that he mentioned in there, and I know we've talked a little bit about puck management, and this is why I think the players had such a hard time digesting last night's game, whether that was the comments from Elias Lindholm or Brad Marchand or Charlie Coyle, or even today from Charlie McAvoy. The compete level just simply wasn't where it needed to be. And the interim head coach, Joe Sacco, referenced that. They were getting beaten to pucks, beaten in one-on-one battles. Listen, you're going to make mistakes, especially against high-level players like the Edmonton Oilers feature. But I think one of the things that the Bruins pride themselves on is their ability to compete hard every single night. Listen, it's not going to be perfect across 60 minutes, but I think that they felt that they were out-competed last night, and that's why they've gone winless in 5 straight. And that's why last night's game was a little bit more lopsided than the previous 4 we had seen.
Yeah, and the level of opponent, right? And I think that's why those losses to the Islanders and to the Rangers and even out of the break to the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I know you're looking at that game and saying, all right, it's the first game out of the break. The Bruins, up against it in terms of travel and all that stuff. And so you could sort of excuse that. And you could certainly excuse it after the way they played the next night at home, where they're able to shut out the Columbus Blue Jackets. So you're thinking, based on the way they played before the break, that game in Columbus was the outlier. Unfortunately for the Bruins, that's sort of been emblematic of the way they've played in the other games. And another thing that stands out too, Judd, and you talk about, getting off to good starts and how important it is for this team. Well, the Bruins have been outscored in the first period 5 of the 7 games post-holiday break, outscored 9-4 in those 7 games. And look, and Brick has talked about it and talked about it on the last podcast. You don't necessarily need results in terms of goal scoring in the first period, but you need to generate opportunities, you need to generate momentum and to have that carry over into the second period and the third period. But the Bruins have not been able to do that, and it's killed them. And look, I mean, the numbers bear it out. They're 1-12-2 when they're trailing after the first period. They're 10-1-2 when leading after one. It's so important.
I think most teams in the National Hockey League, to your point, Adam, they have a hard time. If you look at the numbers, the teams that score first, the teams that win the opening 20 minutes on the scoreboard, they win the bulk of the games. But if you look back at some of the games, even where you thought the Bruins got off to a good start, think of the game in Washington coming on New Year's Eve. The Bruins, they got a gift at the start of the season. Parker Wotherspoon drives one in and hits a partition. It bounces out in front of the net. Justin Brazeau scores. And the Bruins are off and running. Fantastic. Okay. But then Washington was able to rally for 2 goals. They took a 2-1 lead at the end of 20 minutes. And the Bruins just could never forge their way back into the game. Logan Thompson was terrific. But too often the Bruins have put themselves into some difficult spots in that opening 20 minutes. And because of that, they've wound up on the short end. But the other thing that I think about that Brick mentioned when we were doing the telecast here for the last 4 or 5 games is how many winnable games the Bruins have had during this stretch, but they haven't managed the game the way they've needed to. I think about the Toronto game. So the Bruins are able to forge their way back in, tie that game up at 3, and just over 60 seconds later, they're down 4-3, and it's the Maple Leafs that record, I think it was a 6-4 victory in that game. And there are so many different elements that we can talk about, but I think in the bigger picture, the details that they have to play with, how they have to compete, it just hasn't been there on a regular basis. So that's fine. At this point, I shouldn't say that's fine. That's in the past, I guess, is where I want to go, because now you've got to look forward. You're still in a playoff spot at this point. And if you look at the Eastern Conference, and I know we're going to take a look, whether it's this current road swing that the Bruins are on or this chunk of the schedule that the Bruins are on, they're still in a playoff spot as we speak. But it's going to be hand-to-hand combat basically until the end. One other point. So other than maybe the 17-18 season, where it was Bruce Cassidy's first season, and it took the Bruins a while to find their footing, for the most part, in the seasons after that, leading up to this one, the Bruins got off to some really good starts. So if they ran into a problem like this, they had a little bit of padding. They had some room for error. They don't have that type of room for error now.
No, they don't. And you talk about the details of the game, and I know we are going to move forward and take a look at the Eastern Conference, the road ahead. And again, you're trying to move forward as the Bruins are trying to do. But you have to clean up some of these details. And Joe Sacco was actually talking about that at practice on Wednesday in terms of, what Brick likes to say, valuing the puck.
I was more concerned with how we executed, especially with the puck, than the lack of urgency. I thought that our play with the puck, as far as our turnovers, is really starting to affect our game right now over the last few games. I go back 3 games now. And the lack of urgency, the lack of desperation, no. I mean, certainly you'd like to see more of that from maybe certain individuals at certain points, but overall, no. It's more about us executing with the puck, making the right decisions, making the right plays at the right time. And that's the area right now that we're focused on getting better at.
That execution and those puck touches, that's creeped in quite a few times this season. How do you kind of explain that when it starts to happen and it's kind of team-wide at times?
Well, what happens is, you're looking at the game and you see, a couple of players and something happens where they're not executing the right way. They're maybe trying to force a pass into an area that's covered, or maybe trying to force a play that's just not there. And sometimes that stuff can kind of rub off on everyone else. So it's our job to make sure that we're nipping that in the bud as quick as we can. Having said that, I thought, like I said before, most of their chances, not all of them, but most of them, came off our turnovers. So we have to make sure that we have good support for the person who has the puck, number one, so he doesn't have to make a 30-foot cross-ice pass, that we're in the right spots for each other. Those are all things that we talk about. But, just cleaning up that area of our game is going to help us.
Yeah, and just one final thought on that before we move on, and I'd like to hear your thoughts as well. A lot of this has to do with the fact, I think, in terms of what he was talking about, and they're chasing the score a lot, and they're trying to make big plays, and they're trying to bounce back in games. And, we're seeing these things happen when they're chasing the score more often than not too, right?
I think that's part of it, Adam. You're talking about a team that overall has had a hard time scoring. Certainly have had a hard time scoring on the power play. We can talk about that at other times. But I think what Joe is talking about, and whether it's Brick, Barry Peterson, Billy Jaffe, Razor, everybody, how many times can you think, certainly here in this patch of games, that the Bruins have made unforced errors with the puck? There were certainly some elements there last night. Listen, it's going to happen. It's a game of mistakes. So how do you respond? But I think that there's just too many for the Bruins to try and recoup. And you're playing against a team that features that type of skill. So the Bruins had that opportunity, and it was the play that essentially changed the hinge of the game. The Bruins are down 1-0. They get the shorthanded chance from Pavel Zacha. Then they get command of the puck, but they give it right back to the Oilers, and Connor McDavid is sprung on a breakaway, and the game's over. At that point, essentially, or it's certainly going to be hard because the Bruins were hit with a 1-2 combination at that point. Oh, it looks like they're going to tie it. Now they're behind by a pair. After they had full control and gave the puck away, and Connor McDavid races in and scores on Jeremy Swayman. Those are the things that you really have to dial back in the Bruins game.
You're watching or listening to the Hockey Hub, and if you like what you hear, then make sure to like and subscribe to the show. Hockey Hub can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and wherever else podcasts are found. Adam Pellerin and Judd Sirott here with you as the Bruins get ready for a matchup against the Tampa Bay Lightning, the first of 2 games down south. It's the mom's trip, so hopefully they can draw some inspiration from the moms who are with them and supporting them. And, you look ahead now and you look at the standings in the Atlantic Division in the Eastern Conference. And again, we're recording this on Wednesday evening, and the Panthers are in action tonight if you take a look at the Atlantic Division. Now, what's not going to change is that the Bruins will remain in a playoff spot going into the Thursday night game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, a Lightning team that has 5 games in hand on the Bruins and is a point behind. And you take a look at the wild card standings as well, Tampa Bay and Columbus owning the top 2 spots. So the Blue Jackets and that great offense that they have, the 1-2 offense in the NHL, by the way, in goals per game, Columbus and Tampa Bay being number 2. But Judd, obviously, it's a huge game. It's the first time the Bruins are going to see the Lightning this year. They'll see them again on Tuesday. And you can see in the standings how close everything is and how important these games are.
Oh, absolutely. And I guarantee that one of the things that you and I are going to hear at the morning skate, and whether it's before or after the game, we're going to hear puck management come out of the Bruins' mouths, whether that's the coaching staff or the players. Because as you allude to, Tampa's got the second best offense in the league. Nikita Kucherov, as we talk right now, 5th in the league in scoring. You got Braden Point ripping it up, tied for 2nd in the league with 24 goals. This power play, lethal. 4th best in the National Hockey League. Oddly enough, they're actually better on the road than they are at home. But the other thing that I think about, Adam, since this is a division game, is that the Bruins, they've been okay against the division. So as we talk right now, they're 6-4-1 against the Atlantic. But keep in mind, part of the reason that they did so well last year is that they cleaned up against the Atlantic Division. They had the best record against division foes of any team in the Atlantic. They were 18-4-3. So they've already lost as many games in regulation this year against division foes as they lost all of last year. And one oddity heading into tomorrow's game that we're going to have to watch against the Lightning have only 1 win against a division foe here early in the season. They haven't played a lot of games, but they are 1-5 against the Atlantic Division. But some of those other teams that you highlighted in the graphic, so you look at the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are they're only 3 points behind the Bruins. Then you got the Ottawa Senators. We're going to see the Senators here coming up later this month. Montreal has lit it up. They've won 8 of their last 10. Detroit has finally gotten the new coach bump with Todd McClellan behind the bench. They've won each of their last 5. It's great to be able to look in front. And I think Brick alluded to this and look at, hey, you're only 5 points behind the Florida Panthers. And obviously you have a chance to close some ground. Toronto has started to separate itself. But it's those teams right behind, especially the teams within the division where you start to play those 4-point games. Those are the games that I think take on extra meaning.
Silver lining before we move on, Judd, if you'd like to hear it. Would you like to hear it?
I'd love to hear it. I'm always up for it.
The Lightning, 2-4 after the holiday break. They just beat the Hurricanes, 3-2 win. They've scored 13 goals in 6 games, and half of those have come against the Rangers. They had a 6-2 win over the Rangers. Florida, 2-3 after the holiday break. Senators, 1-3-1, and they're dealing with a loss of Linus Ullmark, who's week to week. So we've talked about the Bruins struggles. They're not the only team struggling after the holiday break, and I know it's more about what the Bruins do, but since they're playing these teams and how important these games are, it is important to point out that it's not all roses in other cities right now as they battle it out. Speaking of roses, I hope
Can
the
I make
Bruins
one more point before you go on? Can I add
You go
your silver
ahead, my
lining?
friend. Yes.
So as you look at some of those teams, and as we approach the trade deadline, which I forget the date, I think it's in early March, a lot of those teams are on different developmental planes. I know Brick and I had a chance to talk about this. So if you think about a team like Columbus, and in talking to some of the Columbus personnel, they realize, hey, we're a couple of years away and a couple of players away from being the team that we want to be. But what type of downward pressure is there from ownership and management on that team to get it into the playoffs? Whether it's Columbus, obviously there's a lot of pressure on Ottawa because they haven't been in the playoffs for a while. For the Montreal Canadiens, they've been going through a full rebuild. Are they ready to start auctioning off some pieces and maybe taking some of their assets so they can speed up the process? That's something I don't know at this point. You got the Detroit Red Wings. They've been out of the playoffs here for a long time. The Philadelphia Flyers aren't that far behind, but I don't think anybody anticipates that they are desperately in need of making the playoffs. So as you look at some of those teams that could provide some pressure to the Bruins from below, all of those teams have different situations going on in their markets and with their ownership. And I think it bears watching.
Anytime you have a thought on something, Judd, you feel free, because that's good stuff right there. I really appreciate it. And I know our listeners do as well. Another storyline as the Bruins head into the matchup against the Lightning is that Morgan Geekie is going to face off against his brother Connor for the first time in the National Hockey League. And I had a chance to talk to him about that on the Hockey Hub podcast recently. So I'm looking at the schedule, right? And I'm seeing some other guy with your last name in the league, Connor. I don't know if you know him or not, but no, your younger brother getting an opportunity in the NHL this year for the first time with the Lightning after the trade. Did you just call him like before he made his? How did that work? Like congratulate him? I don't know what kind of relationship you guys have, but
yeah, we're close. We're really close.
Yeah.
Our family's all like we talk every day.
Nice.
Me and him, we don't talk about hockey a ton. I try to give him some pointers here and there.
Yeah.
I was trying to explain to him how to get a cashier's check for his apartment the other day. And I was like, those are the things that we talk about. It's not about hockey.
Yeah, well, you're like the married old father now,
I am,
right?
yeah. I'm an old guy. But I was like, I went through all those things, and it's tough when you, for the first time especially.
Yeah.
I think he's 20 years old, so it's like a couple years younger than I was, and going down there to a new team with guys you don't really know, especially coming from Arizona. They got a lot of young, youthful guys, good players, and then you go to Tampa Bay where they've won, however many cups, they've been to the playoffs however many years, and it's a little different culture maybe, but it's good. I think he fits in. He's very outgoing and maybe the opposite of me, but it's good. He fits in. I'm sure you can tell by his turtleneck and his tinted visor and no teeth. It's maybe the opposite, but
dude, what's up with the pregame shower bath? When did that start?
I have no idea. He was in junior, I think, when he started the walking backwards. Okay. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen that, no.
Yeah, so I don't know. Whatever. He started the walking backwards thing. The water thing, I've never even seen that before.
Wow. Okay.
I saw it on
social media. It was on
it was on
the
TikTok
NHL
or
Tampa.
NHL,
yeah.
Somebody would have posted
It's become a thing down there, I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We don't really, I don't know.
When you talk,
he's
you don't
something
talk about
else,
that,
man.
he's the best,
but he's also I can't even put it into words. He's something else. He's good.
How much are you looking forward to, you're going to get to play against him in January?
Yeah, I mean, we've always been a little bit far apart in age.
Yeah.
So we've never really played together, against each other. We skated with each other in the summer for a little bit, and it's always fun. But, I mean, at that point, we try to, play with each other. I like playing with him, and he likes playing with me. Just obvious connection. I'm sure you can put that together. But, yeah, it's fun. It'll be cool. I think it'll be really cool for our parents and the rest of our family. Yeah, I don't really know. It's tough to know what to expect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
It's not, but I know you guys say game by game, but yeah, you're right. It is close. It's 2 months
I think we've got the mom's trip. I think is that
right.
trip too. So my mom will get a front row seat, and I think my wife's going to fly down for that too, just to see everybody. So it'll be fun. He's a great player, and he's kind of coming into his own. So if he has questions or anything, I'll definitely help him out or whatever. But he's a smart kid.
Not those games though.
No, not those ones. Yeah, we probably won't talk much. We'll get the courtesy picture for, and that's about it.
The time has finally come, so we get to see Morgan Geekie and Conor Geekie face off, which will be a lot of fun. And it's the mom's trip, man. And we've been on these trips before, whether it's the dad's trip or the siblings trip, and you really look forward to seeing the parents or the family members. And the moms were at Bruins practice on Wednesday, Judd, which was pretty cool to see. You see, the footage from the Bruins Twitter account posting that the moms were there, and they're in full force. You can see Lynn Marchand getting the crowd fired up, posing for a picture. So it's always a fun trip.
Oh, I think it's going to be terrific. And I think Charlie McAvoy had mentioned it's always great having family around. And maybe at a time like this, it actually has a little bit more meaning. And it can certainly be really helpful for a team as they try and shake out of this 5-game winless skid. But it's going to be fantastic. Let me circle back to Morgan Geekie. So he had mentioned also that this is the first time his mom has had a chance to go on a mom's trip. All the others, he said, have been dad's trips. One other footnote to that, because the brothers are going to get an opportunity to play against one another essentially for the first time. His dad is also going to be down here for this one. But the other thing, I don't know if you had caught it the other day when Brandon Carlo was walking off the ice and heading into the room, because I think whether it's the moms, the dads, the siblings, everybody loves coming on here. I think Brandon Carlo had said my dad was thinking about grabbing a wig and see if he can sneak onto the flight for the mom's trip. So no, it's going to be fantastic. And for the Geekies, it's going to be really special. Conor's a really good player. He was the 11th overall pick back in the 22 draft by what was then the Arizona Coyotes. And he actually came over in a big package when Mikhail Sergachev got traded to the Utah Hockey Club. And Conor Geekie comes down here and off to a decent start. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him play. And I love some of the antics. So it's just going to add a little bit more personality to tomorrow's game.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool to see as well, Judd, some of the first-year guys who have never experienced a family trip like this before, right? And so I was thinking about Andrew Peak, who obviously, was brought over at the deadline last year. He's from Florida. He's going to get to go to Sunrise. He's going to get to experience that, so that's pretty cool. Justin Brazeau, another guy, I was thinking about as well. But then, of course, there's the players who've been there, done that. And the captain has certainly been a part of many of these in his career. And, and I got to say, his mom, Lynn, really has her son down pat. Check it out.
Good morning. It's a great day to be me. What are you talking? Come on, that's not right.
Brad, what are you working on?
Just looking over some pregame notes. We have the best looking team in the NHL. Bunch of studs. I'm beautiful.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. Fantastic. I love the fall. That was impressive right there.
I love the whole thing, and the fact that she's got the gift of gab in the same way that her son does. Not a surprise, a chip off the old block.
Yeah, no question about that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We have the game on Nesson Thursday as the Bruins take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. We'll have some special interviews and coverage of the mom's trip as well. And then we're sticking down here for the national game against the Panthers as well, because there's going to be some great content to be had on this mom's trip as they take on the Florida Panthers. So really looking forward to that as Judd goes back up in the 15-degree weather in Boston, not to rub it in or anything.
Oh, it's going to warm up. Are you kidding me? It's supposed to be in the low 30s. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I haven't checked the forecast, I'll be honest with you. So, but
just
you know
tell
what?
me from the beach.
Yeah, I will. I'll make sure to text you, buddy. All right. So, Judd, looking forward to hearing you on the call once again. As the Bruins take on the Lightning. Looking forward to our game coverage on Nesson. We're also looking forward to the Women's Beanpot, which kicks off next Tuesday at Matthews Arena. And the championship game once again taking place at TD Garden on January 21st. And with a preview of that matchup coming up on Tuesday, we have our own Laura Stickells, who is with representatives from Harvard and Boston College.
Welcome back to Beanpot Media Days. I'm joined now by Harvard Women's Hockey. I've got Ainsley Tuffy here. She is a first-year goalie for Harvard. I also have Ellie Bayard. She's a senior forward. Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
So we were just chatting. You guys both have roots to the Boston area. I know you actually went to high school in Minnesota, but you're originally from here. You spent your whole life in the Boston area. So what's it like kind of growing up having this type of tournament in your backyard?
I grew up going, so it's super cool to actually finally be playing in it and just seeing everyone else going through it and watching, and then I'm finally going to be able to play. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I feel like the historical nature of it is just so exciting, and like you said, we grew up watching it, and being able to actually play in it is very surreal, and I think we're both pumped up, and the whole team is.
You said you grew up going. Is there a moment or a game for you that really stands out?
Do you? I don't know.
Honestly, just the atmosphere in general, I remember always going, and there were so many fans, and I was always so excited, and now that it's at TD, I feel like that's even more of a worldly stance, which is so exciting that we're able to be a part of it.
Yeah, watching last year, just knowing I was going in next year was just surreal to watch everyone go to TD, and the huge crowd and the bowl being full was awesome to watch.
Yeah, when you were being recruited, you probably didn't even know that this game was going to be held at TD Garden, right? But there's always, this history surrounding the Beanpot. So how much did this tournament really play into where you wanted to go to college?
I mean, just coming home and knowing the fact I was coming home to play, and then seeing everyone around and BU, BC, Harvard, obviously, just all my friends starting to go to schools there and everything, knowing I could play against all my friends was nice to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, similarly, I think it's just a amazing tradition. I feel really grateful that I get to be a part of it, and I feel like it definitely contributed to my decision in staying in the Boston local area.
Well, when you think back to last year, I mean, you guys really made history, right, Ellie? That third place game, that was the first time that two women's college teams played a game at TD Garden. So now that you think back on that year, what is it like now? What moment really stands out to you?
I think honestly just the fact that we went into a shootout, and I think it was the loudest crowd we've ever experienced, and by that point pretty much the entire lower bowl was full. So I remember just sitting on the bench and looking up and seeing lots of little girls cheering us on and youth teams that were all very familiar. So I feel like it was just a really amazing experience, and I think it finally sank in when I just looked around and I was like, wow, this is really happening. So it was very surreal.
Ainsley, for you, I know you didn't play in that, but your goalie partner, Emily Davidson, did. So what has she told you about that experience?
We always joke about before the games they play some of the clips from that game, and she makes the shootout save to win it, and I always tap her butt and give her a little tap just saying good job before she goes out every game.
What kind of advice have some of the older girls given you going into this tournament?
Well, we were talking about it yesterday. We went to the Bruins game yesterday, and I was like, that must have been crazy to experience. And they were like, it was so surreal. Like, just enjoy that kind of moment and, like, just take it in and just play.
Now that you guys, you played in the third place game last year, what kind of motivation did that does that give you to get back to the championship game this year?
I feel like Ainsley mentioned earlier, we have a lot of rivals, and I feel like the Beanpot is like a season within itself. So I feel like everyone comes at their best, and there's a lot of energy behind it, and it's kind of for bragging rights, as we always say, for the Boston area, and especially being a local, both of us being local. It's just a really special opportunity. So I feel like everyone's going to be, going as hard as they can and prepared for whatever.
I feel like the tournament has to be really exciting for you guys too, being Harvard, and the fact that the other 3 teams are in Hockey East. So you don't face them all the time. Those 3 teams, they face each other all the time. But what's it like for you guys getting to have this opportunity every year to get to face your crosstown rivals?
I mean, I'm super excited just due to the fact that, like, obviously we don't play them every day, but, like, my friends from the area, like, I'm like, they're like, we're going to play, we're so excited, like, everything, just, like, everyone being close and all that.
Yeah, I feel like it's just, especially being a senior, playing against people that I grew up playing with that we otherwise probably wouldn't have the opportunity to. It's really special, and I feel like it brings out a different sort of competitiveness, which is always really fun.
You won it 3 years ago in Matthews Arena. What can you kind of draw on from that experience? I know it's a very different team this year, but how can you build on that and carry some of that experience into this year?
Yeah, I mean, that was probably one of the highlights of my Harvard hockey career, for sure. I think it was kind of an up and down game, and we were able to seal a deal at the end. And I feel like the biggest takeaways for me were just like continue to ride it out. Like I said, it's kind of a season within itself, so playoff hockey can be a little crazy. So we kind of just focused in, and we got it done, and it was surreal. It was awesome. So.
In these single elimination tournaments, it's really exciting because throughout the course of the year, it's like you have the entire body of work to show for it at the end. But with these tournaments, it's really do or die, So what is the mindset that it really takes to be successful in these?
I would just say, like, finding the grit and, like, just grinding through everything. And, like, our team especially, like, we just find the grit all the time. And, like, I never fail to think, like, anyone will, like, just give up. And I know that, like, they all find it.
Yeah, kind of the same thing. Just there's, because of the elimination aspect, it, like you said, it kind of lights a little fire inside of you, and you definitely don't, or you want to come out on top. So I feel like it's a kind of different than a regular season game, which is a lot of fun.
I like that you said find the grit, right? That's a great phrase, or almost a rallying point for a team. Are there any other phrases or identity pieces that you guys have really tried to rally around or build your identity around this year?
I would say, I mean, we kind of joked about this the other day, but, like, be like a goldfish. If anything happens, just move on and, like, just keep playing your game.
Yeah, and then I think we all kind of try to embody just being the best teammate you can to each other and be the teammate you would want in a situation, someone else to be for you. So I think we're lucky we have a really good group of girls, and I think they're all amazing teammates, so we're very lucky.
Ainsley, what's the vibe around the freshman class going into this tournament? I'm sure you guys are really excited, but what are you guys saying to each other?
We're all, like, our freshman class is super close, and we're all, like, we always chat about stuff, and we'll have, like, hockey talk, we say, but, like, we just are so excited for this moment, and, like, we've kind of always, like, looked up to it growing up, and, like, the fact we're all going to play, we're like, holy crap, like, this is awesome.
Ainsley, I know we were talking beforehand. You said that Ellie gave you some really good advice going just the other day. What are some of the pieces of advice that you guys have really shared over the last couple of days?
Take a deep breath when you get out there, and then, like, just look up and look at everyone that's watching and all the kids that are there and, like, all the little girls watching, and, like, just take it in and, like, enjoy it.
Is there a sign that really sticks out to you from last year?
There was a lot, honestly. I think it was more so than signs. It was like the energy itself of the little girls and everyone in general. But I think just seeing the like the local teams was really special. But why, was there a certain sign that you remember?
Oh no, I just remember seeing all of the pictures and thinking like, wow, that's so special. I didn't know if maybe there was one with your number or your name on it that really stuck out to you. I just always feel like that was kind of the thing that stuck out to me last year with that game at the Garden, is just the number of people that not only showed up but really showed up and supported. I thought was so impressive. So as you two kind of flip the page to this new year, you almost like have a fresh start, right? When you come back from break, it feels like almost a new season. So what are you guys really focusing on going into the second half on the ice?
Yeah, I think we definitely have some specific points of like technicalities within our playing style, but I think just recommitting to working as hard as we can, and I think we have great goaltending, so just defensively playing smart, and then getting some points on the board.
Yeah, I agree. And, like, every day when we go to practice, like, there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to be working our hardest. And, like, everyone is trying their best, and everyone's trying to score. Everyone's trying to get that one last rebound. And, like, that's just something we build off of every day, I think. So just continue to build.
For both of you, what's the moment that you're looking forward to most going into next week?
Probably just, like, looking around and acknowledging everyone that's there and knowing that, like, my family's there supporting me.
Yeah, I think a similar thing as a senior. It's a really special thing, and I feel like I really want to stay as present as possible. And I'm excited to see the freshmen's reaction to how special it is.
I love that. Well, thank you guys both so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, and good luck next week.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
I'm back at Beanpot Media Day. I'm here with Abby Newhook and Gaby Roy. Thank you guys so much for joining me. They're both forwards for the Boston College Eagles. How excited are you at this time of year? I know coming back in the new year, it's always you're flipping the script. It's almost like you're kind of starting a brand new season, but with the Beanpot on the horizon now in January, what's it like getting started right away with this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, super exciting time for sure. We got back a few days ago now. We've already had 2 games, so we're right into it. But yeah, we definitely look at this as like a second season in a sort of way. But yeah, no, it's going really well so far, and we have one more game to prep us for the Beanpot, so we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I love it because it's almost like a mini playoff, so you kind of, especially the younger kids, get a taste of what a one-and-done game is like. So I think it's perfect timing to do it like a month before real playoffs start.
We're going to talk a little bit about this year's Beanpot, but first I want to reflect on last year. I know that tournament didn't go the way that you guys wanted it to, but even still, when you think back, you did make history. You were one of the first 2 teams to play a women's hockey game, a women's college hockey game on TD Garden ice. When you think about that now, what does that mean to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, obviously not the result we wanted, but it was such a cool experience to be part of the first Beanpot ever played at TD Garden. Such a cool experience. The fans were absolutely amazing, and it's something that we'll remember forever. And it started to pave the way for the younger generation, so it was super cool to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, like Nui said, it was so cool. People to this day still ask me what it was like to play in front of that many fans. Like, that's by far the most people I've ever played in front of. And there were just so many little girls, even like young boys were there, like cheering us on. So it was just such a cool experience to see all the different kinds of people that came to support us.
When you saw all of the videos and photos that came out of the championship game, I know it was great for the earlier game as well, but that second game, it always has that little extra buzz, right? So when you saw all that content that was coming out of that game, how much did it inspire you to get back there this year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was super cool. At the end of our game, everyone started piling in, so we kind of got a little bit of a taste of what it would be like to be in the championship game. But yeah, I mean, it's been on our mind ever since, and yeah, we're super excited for it and really hoping to get there this year.
Yeah, when we were walking out to our bus after, I kind of like peeked in the rink a little because I could hear how many people were there, and I was like, wow, that's how many people I want to play in front of next year. So I think we're going to be there this year in that championship game, so I'm excited to play in front of all those fans.
You guys were right there. You were right on the edge last year. You lost in a shootout twice, and we all know that shootouts can really go either way. So what did you guys learn from that experience in that tournament?
I mean, I think from like us being like forwards on the team especially, just be like finishing on every opportunity you have. And I think that also comes like earlier in the season. We've looked at it a bit the past few games here, but just finishing on every opportunity, playing a full 3 periods, starting right off the get-go. I think that's a super important part, especially when it comes to like one-and-done games. Obviously, we're playing, in a tournament with 3 other really good teams, so every game's going to be tight and intense. But yeah, I think if we carry those 3 things with us, it'll be helpful.
Yeah, I think we just need to score early and often because in those games, once you start to wear teams down early, they pretty much give up by the third period. So I think, like Nui said, just finishing opportunities, and I think we shouldn't have any issues if we do that.
All right, so Gaby, you're from the Boston area. Abby, you went to Tabor, so you guys both have Boston ties. How many Beanpots did you guys watch growing up?
I watched a decent amount, like men's and women's, because my dad reffed, so he reffed a Beanpot tournament once, but that was men's. But I mean, I feel like I've watched pretty much like every year, every other year, whether it was on TV or in person, and it was just always so cool, and I was like, I want to play in one of those games.
Yeah, same here. I watched Beanpot since I committed to BC. My brother played at BC for a couple years, so I was also watching the men's Beanpot, but it definitely got me very excited to come to BC, and it had been hyped up at Tabor and all along the way, so super exciting.
And Gaby, I know that your dad played a little bit of time in the Bruins organization. Obviously, your brother Alex has played on Garden Ice, being in the NHL as well. What's it like for you guys to get to follow in their footsteps and have your own opportunity to play in that historic building?
I think it's like one of the coolest things ever. I know my dad, like seeing me play on the ice that he got to play on, he's probably so proud and he loves talking about it. He loves going to the game. Like he's so excited to watch, and I just love being able to play on the ice that he got to play on.
What did he tell you before that game?
The same thing he tells me every game. He always sends me like a pump up text, and it was pretty much the same that he always sends, just that expect a lot more fans there. It's pretty much the only difference he told me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, super cool for me as well. I've got to see my brother play on, many different NHL stages and that sort of thing. So being able to play in the same arena that he played in, continues to play in, is super cool. Even going to his game this year in early December, just looking at the ice and being like, wow, we're going to be here in a month's time and we're going to have a lot of fans in the building is super cool.
And Gaby, I know you said you got to be in the Garden once watching your dad ref. Obviously, you watched your brother play in the Beanpot. But at the time, neither of you knew that you were going to have the opportunity to have that kind of Beanpot experience too, right? Before, the Beanpot looked a lot different on the women's side. So when was that moment that you found out that you guys were going to get to play in the Garden last year, and how did you react to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think starting off, like, we had 2 years already. Gaby had 3 where we weren't in the Garden, so kind of seeing both sides of it was, like, crazy. Being in a small building, playing against either BU, Northeastern, Harvard, whatever it is. Going from their smaller rinks to playing in the Garden where, like, it's much bigger, and seeing that filled out by fans was just super cool.
Yeah, I can't remember when we were told, but I just remember when we found out, I was like, oh my God, like people, because I don't know if people on our team knew yet, but I was like, I cannot wait till people find out that we're playing at the Garden. Like, that is so exciting. Everyone's going to be so pumped up for it. And I feel like it just being able to play on an NHL rink in such a big tournament, people get even more, like the players get even more pumped up for it. So I was excited.
Yeah, how different does it actually feel? I mean, I'm sure it looks different from a fan perspective, from a reporter's perspective. I mean, it definitely looks like it would be a different feeling on the ice. But for you guys, when you skate out and you're listening to the anthem or when you take that first shift, really, what does it feel like when you're on that big ice sheet?
Everything just seemed a lot bigger. Like, the whole rink just seemed a lot bigger. All the fans just made the place feel massive. It's obviously way louder speakers, and it was a lot different than what I was expecting.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Obviously, a much bigger ice. The fans, obviously, was crazy. But yeah, it was just when you walk out onto the ice, I mean, between the locker rooms and having all the top-notch facilities and everything was super cool.
All right, well, coming into this year, you're right now 13-6-1. You guys are having a really good start to your season. So where do you feel like you're at right now as a group?
I think we're doing really well. I think there's obviously, like every team, there's stuff we can work on, and just getting back to playing a full 60-minute game. But other than that, I think we've had an unbelievable season, and the team's close, and there's not much more we can work on.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're off to a really good start. I think we had a really good first half to our season, and now coming in, having 3 games right off the hop has definitely helped us. But yeah, we're a really good team. We've gelled together really nicely, and we're super close. So yeah, I think if we just stick to our game plan and do everything that we've been working on, we'll be just fine.
How would you say the identity of this year's team kind of compares to BC teams of the past?
I would say we're like an unusually close team.
Okay, I love that.
Like, I feel like every single person on the team is like super close. Everyone's best friends. Like, there's never any fighting, nothing. Like, everyone is so close. Like, I feel like I could tell anyone anything on the team.
Yeah, and I think on the ice, like, it's probably one of the most competitive teams we've ever had. In my 4 years anyways, we can go out and practice. We can battle as hard as we can, go 100 miles per hour. And our practices this year especially have been a lot more intense than previous years. So I think that's definitely helped us. But yeah, we're super close, like Gaby said, and we have a great dynamic going.
All right, last question for you guys. You're playing Northeastern in the semifinals. Now, you've already had success against them this year in Matthews Arena very recently. In fact, in Northeastern's last 8 games, you're the only team that's beaten them. So what can you draw on from that game to help you guys have success in the semis?
Yeah, I mean, I think we started the game off super strong, got a lot of pucks to the net, used our speed that game. But I think back to my freshman year and when we played Northeastern in the first round, and playing them in Matthews and beating them in Matthews was an unbelievable feeling. So that kind of has fueled me again for this year and just wanting to have that feeling back and be back in that moment.
Yeah, I agree. That game and that whole Beanpot series in general was some of my favorite like hockey games I've ever played in, and I think we just have to go in with the same game plan that we did a few weeks ago against them, and I think if we just do all that, the same thing, but even more intense since it's the Beanpot, I think we should be good.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Good luck next week.
Thank you.
For more women's Beanpot coverage, check out the newest episode of Respect Her Game, where Laura Stickells and Annabelle Hasselbeck give you a full preview of the tournament as they speak with players from BC, BU, Harvard, and Northeastern. That's Respect Her Game, available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Thanks once again to Laura Stickells for our women's Beanpot coverage as we look ahead to the semifinal round on Tuesday. And thank you once again to Judd Sirott as we talk all things Bruins here on the Hockey Hub podcast. We'll wrap things up for now. We'll see you again on Tuesday. Bye.